Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and for today's video I have a very special Christmassy doll repaint. Before I get into it, I just wanted to say Merry Christmas to everyone and Happy Holidays. This doll is a little bit different than your typical just, Christmassy festive doll repaint. This is actually a Mad Max / post-apocalyptic Christmas doll repaint. This is actually in collaboration with some really talented YouTube doll artists that I'm sure you guys all know and love. Going from left to right, we have Blank Space Dolls, who created a reindeer, and then Enchantarium, who created a reindeer / figure skater. His name is Akin, who did Santa Claus. Val Kitty's World did a gingerbread girl. Cairo's Workshop made an ice woman. So Doll Creations created an elf, and Dollies made an angel. I'll have everyone linked down below, be sure to check them out. I'm personally extremely excited to check out everyone's video because I'm going to be very bored on Christmas because Christmas is canceled in my family because of COVID, so this Christmas is just going to be me, my husband, my cats, and my doll repaint videos that I'm watching on YouTube. Anyway, so what I chose to do for this post-apocalyptic Christmas doll repaint is I chose to make a gender bend Jack Frost, aka Jackie Frost. For those of you guys who don't know what Jack Frost is, I just feel like everyone does, but if you don't, it's basically the personification of winter. As a base, I decided to go with Vandala Doubloons because she has this like cool tone, minty colored skin, and also a fake leg. We're starting with the basics. I'm cutting off all her hair, which was pretty nasty to begin with, so that was kind of rewarding. And then I am putting her head in hot water so that I can heat up the vinyl and pop it off. We scrape around the inside of her head with a screwdriver, getting all them nasty glue plugs out, and once they're all nice and loose, I'm going in through the neck hole with needle nose pliers and pulling out the glue. To take the paint off her face, I'm using nail polish remover and I'm just wiping her face off. And I'm gonna be honest, Vandala Doubloons is like one of the only Monster High dolls that I actually like her factory paint, so this was a little sad. I mean, honestly, like some of them, they look real massively cockeyed, they're printed all weird, but hers was just like so cute. I feel like whoever made the Haunted line was just feeling it that day. That line and Sweet Screams are just like my favorites. I want those dolls in box, they're so cute. We're going to be rerouting with white acrylic yarn, which is why I painted her scalp white in case there's any gaps in the reroute. I'm going with white because it's kind of like the stereotypical depiction of Jack Frost. Normally has white hair. And I'm cutting this yarn kind of chaotically. I'm also going to be rerouting some of this smaller yarn into her head that's pastel colors. So it's like pink, white, blue. I'm tying the yarn to whatever this thing is. Please don't bother telling me what you think it is in the comments. I've gotten every single comment, seriously. Like, I've had people tell me it's a bag handle, a scarf holder, gigantic brass knuckles, a wall decoration. This thing just is what it is. Whatever it is, it is. I brush the yarn out with a cap brush and then I cut off a chunk of it, take a tiny bit on my finger, loop that around my reroute tool, and then plunge it into the head. I didn't bother straightening this yarn because it's just not really necessary. It's already pretty straight. You could probably get it to be very sleek if you straightened it, but I kind of like the more poofy look of it just brushed out. Periodically, I'm taking a couple of these smaller pieces of yarn. I'm not brushing them out at all, and I'm just rerouting them into the head. I wanted them to look like she had like braids or dreads or whatever. To set all that hair in place, I'm taking Fabri-Tac glue and I'm squeezing it in through her neck hole. I'm kind of like mushing it around once I squeeze it in a little bit, just so that all of the plugs that I put into her head are coated. We're finally onto the face up, so I spray the doll 3 times with Mr. Super Clear, wearing a respirator mask and waiting 15 minutes between each spray, and then we start sketching out her face. I'm starting by sketching in the eyes. I'm doing that with a red pencil, and I'm sort of following her eye mold. She has like really big, well-defined, molded on eyes, and I like the shape of them, so I'm just sort of sketching over it. I've had people ask me for help with getting better at drawing on eyes on dolls, and The only really like advice that I have for that is really trying to like study how people sketch eyes. For example, like seeing how I sketch it on, like I start with the shape and then I go on to the eyelid and then the wrinkles and then the waterline and then the wrinkles underneath the eye. Just observing each and every step that I do, or that any artist does. Like if you watch somebody doing a speed paint of a portrait or something, just really trying to be like hyper, not critical, but hyper, just pay a lot of attention, I guess, and then try to replicate what they're doing on eyes. And I know that might not sound like the best advice, but that's really like the way that I learned how to sketch eyes. I just kind of observed what other people were doing, or I just stared at eyeballs and like really tried to break them down in my head. This also might sound obvious, but I mean, this is the best help, is just drawing eyes over and over and over again. I think the reason why I've gotten kind of better at drawing eyes is that, or good throughout my adult life, is that in high school I would sketch eyeballs all over my homework, which probably sounds really creepy, and it kind of is, but it's what made me good at drawing eyeballs. So just draw them wherever you can. Like get a sketchbook and just draw eyeballs in it, you know? Back into the face up, I'm shading around her face with blue tones because her skin is more mint toned, so it has like that green to it, but I wanted to push it or kind of make the illusion that it's more blue than green. So I'm just shading around her face, hoping that it sort of pushes it, I guess, over the edge from green into blue. Using a deep red pastel, I apply that to her lips. Even when dolls have blue skin, I give them veins. So I'm just adding veins around her face because I just like veins. Y'all know. I don't know why I feel the need to mention this in every single video, but I'm just adding some branch-like pencil marks around her eyes and her forehead to make it look like she has veins. I actually got a comment the other day on my Harpy video. That doll is like has a deeper complexion, and somebody said that you don't need to add veins on dolls with deeper complexions because I guess with deeper complexions you can't see the veins. But y'all, I'm probably still gonna add them. Like, listen, veins are my aesthetic. I just like veins. I don't know. I like sketching them. I like the way they look. So everybody getting veins. I wanted her eyes to have a gradient from brown to a really light blue, so I'm just creating that with colored pencils. I know that I give all of my dolls blotchy intense blushing, but I feel like it really works for this doll because it just makes her look more cold, so I feel like it kind of leans into the whole Jack Frost thing. With a dark purple pencil, I'm going over her lid wrinkles. To make the eye color pop more and to also create a better gradient in the eyes, I'm going over what I put down with pencil, so brown and then light blue, with pastels and a Q-tip. I tap black pastel on the inner and outer portion of her eye. I would do this with all of my repaints, but I'm also tapping black pastel on the middle of her lips just to make it so that my cat just sneezed, just to make it so that she kind of looks like she has like moodier makeup on. Not moody, but like, I don't know, she's in the post-apocalypse, so like I'm assuming she's a little moody. I wanted her nose to be a skinny legend, so I'm taking white pencil and I'm just adding a line to the middle of her nose and then blending it out with a Q-tip. This may look intense at first, but once you spray it with MSC, it kind of like dulls it down, or, I mean, MSC just dulls down light colors, so it doesn't look as intense. I'm adding white watercolor onto her eyes and also her lips to make certain highlights pop more. These pencils that I pull out from time to time that are like silver on the, I don't think it's called the barrel, but like it's not on a brush. It's called the barrel. I don't know, whatever. They're silver. They're the Derwent metallic watercolor pencils, and they are, at first when I bought them, I was like, I don't know if these are worth it, but I actually really like them. Like right here, I'm adding metallic blue to her eyelids, and it looks really pretty. Later on the waterline, I'm going to add some metallic rose gold. I think soon I'm going to be putting out a video of just all of my essentials for face up, so let me know if you'd be interested in seeing that. With a Q-tip and some blue Pearl X pigment, I'm tapping that onto her pupil. I like adding a ring of highlight around my doll's irises with a really light toned watercolor paint. In this case, I'm doing light blue. I also like, once I go over that light blue, adding on the left side a color from my Arteje metallic watercolor set. So in this case, it would be like a light blue on top of the left side of that halo or highlight that I added. It just makes it go from a highlight into a metallic highlight, and I like how it looks. On to hair. So I am giving her some eyebrow hair with a dark brown watercolor pencil and some lashes with a black watercolor pencil. I prefer Faber-Castell pencils for hair-like pencil marks because they're very hard, sharp pencils. They're not the most pigmented, but they're very like hard and sharp, and I feel like when I flick out hairlines, it just looks really hair-like because it's so thin and sharp. I really enjoy taking my metallic watercolor pencils and just flicking out the lashes at the end. It looks good. Like, it really does. I like it. So I'm taking blue and doing that. And like I said earlier, I'm taking the metallic rose gold watercolor pencil and I'm going over the lashes as well as putting some on the inner and outer portion of the waterline. All of the hair that I put down on the face, I'm going over it with corresponding watercolors. So black for the lashes and dark brown for the eyebrows. Since she's Jack Frost, she needs some macro Pearl X pigment all over her face, so I just put that all over her face. I also took Interference Blue, it's another Pearl X pigment, and I added that to her lower lash line as well as on top of her lips. Now onto one of the most meticulous things in doll repaints. I'm adding little white lines going towards her pupils with white watercolor. I wanted to give her some like extra makeup. So in post-apocalyptic stuff, a common theme or makeup that I find that people who are in these things have is just kind of like black all over their eyes. And I thought about doing that, but I thought it would like take away from the eye details if I did it. So I decided to do like a kind of tapping motion going up her eyes in like a pointed shape with black watercolors and also below her eyes. I was trying to mimic like an icicle shape, so that's what the inspiration is. She sort of looks like a clown, but like a fierce clown, so it was okay. With metallic blue watercolors, I add a little dot on top of her pupils, and then I also take the blue and I tap on top of the black that's on her lower and upper eyes, again to sort of lean into it looking like an icicle, and it also just looks really cool, so that's the main reason. I added a bit of that metallic blue on top of her lash line because it looks really good. Okay, metallic watercolors on top of anything that's black just looks nice. We're finally done her face up, so I'm taking some Vallejo gloss and I'm adding that on top of her lips. And she's done! I actually really like how her face turned out. Like a lot. Let me know what you think about it down below. Moving away from her head, we are moving on to her body. So I am blushing her body with the same tones that I used on her face. So like pinks, blues, purples, and I'm just blushing her body with those colors. I also painted her leg like a metallic dark blue because I thought it would go better with her color scheme, and I put her head back on. So since this is the post-apocalypse, she's moody and she needs a weapon. So I was very inspired by Mr. Freeze. He has like a hose coming out of his back, and I was like, that looks really cool. So I wanted to do something like that with my doll. So I took some epoxy glue and I glued a magnet on her back because I wanted the hose to be detachable. And then I'm taking this like glittery glue stick that I have and I'm putting that all around the magnet because I wanted it to look like she has like some of her frosty powers just like seeping out. I just saw some pictures of people who had some rings in their hair and stuff and it looked cool, so I'm taking her the yarn bits that I didn't like brush out or anything, and I'm tying some rings to the bottom of them. I'm curling her hair with my heated up chopstick. So these look like really nice little ringlets when I'm done them, but I didn't spray the doll's hair or anything, so they're gonna like fall out, and they do. By the time you like look at her at the end, like her curls are not this like pretty and neat and ringlety, and they're a little bit more wild, so that's what I was going for. I was looking at some pictures of Furiosa from Mad Max, and she has a like mechanical arm or hand that is attached with a belt, and I wanted to sort of recreate that with my doll's leg, so I am making a belt out of purple vinyl and attaching that to the leg. I'm gonna mention this now before I get into the outfit and stuff, because as this doll progresses you'll kind of realize that I wasn't really using if you look at like post-apocalyptic stuff and Mad Max and everything, there's a very specific color scheme that fashion has. It's very like earthy tones, beiges, things like that, and I wasn't really sure how to incorporate that into a like Jack Frost winter doll, so I just chose not to. So I made her outfit very blue and like cool tones. I still think she has like a post-apocalyptic aesthetic though, even if she's not the right color. I wanted her leg to look a little bit more mechanical, so I'm taking my UV resin and I'm mixing together purple and then like purple pigment and then also a sparkly pink resin color, which I know that, you know, I don't think they have sparkles in the post-apocalypse, but I had to hold myself back so much with sparkles because she's like a, you know, she's like an ice lady or like a snow person. She's Jack Frost. I personally associate like winter and ice and like that whole like aesthetic with sparkles and just shiny things, but I couldn't really just fully express myself with that, so I'm trying to do it in subtle ways like with these gears. Once I was done filling the molds, I popped them in my UV lamp, and after like a minute or so, I took them out and I popped them off the mold, and it's just, I don't know, my mind is kind of blown with UV resin and how it's opened up my world, because I feel like I'm gonna make so many tiny things now. I hot glued the gears to her leg. I only really ended up using 4 of them because I didn't want to overdo it. So now I have tons of gears, which isn't so bad. They're kind of cute. Moving on to her clothes, so I wanted her to have like a belly shirt and shorts, so I just cut out a simple pattern for her belly shirt. I hemmed the top and the bottom and the armhole area on the front and the back. I sewed the top together at the shoulder and the side seams. On to shorts. So I hemmed the top and the bottom of the front of the shorts, and then for the back of the shorts I hemmed the top and the bottom, and then where the clasps are gonna go I also hemmed that. I sewed the 2 pieces of the front and also the 2 pieces of the back together at the crotch. To finish up those shorts, I sewed them together at the side seam and also the leg holes, and then we flip them. I gather stitched a bit of stretchy white fishnet fabric, and then I sewed it to a belt, which for some reason I forgot to film, so I'm very sorry. I'm creating her a fluffy white jacket with an open back, so I cut out a pattern and then I'm hemming everything. I'm hemming the opening of the back and the front, as well as the bottom of the jacket and then the bottom of the sleeve. I have blue faux fur that I'm going to be using as a trim for this jacket, so I cut a strip of it off and then I'm sewing that to the opening of the front and the back of the jacket, as well as the bottom of the sleeves. Typically I'd cut faux fur down and trim it because it's just very long, but in this case I kind of thought like the unruly quality of it lent to the post-apocalyptic theme. I then sew the sleeves onto her jacket. After the sleeves are sewn in place, I sew together the jacket at the side seam. Typically when I do this, I pin it together at the armpit just because it helps me kind of keep the jacket aligned when I'm sewing it, so it's not like all weird and uneven. I know the fur looks crazy here, but I swear I'm going to be sewing some of it down so it's not quite as intense. Since I have 2 halves of a jacket that aren't connected because I have the big opening in the back for her like gun hose, I'm sewing the bottom of the jacket together there with some purple vinyl. I also gave her a belt in the front made out of the same vinyl. To do a bit of layering with her outfit, I wrapped some fishnet around her waist, and I am just kind of cutting across the bottom of it so that it looks more jagged, and then I'm sewing it in place. After looking at her outfit all assembled, I sort of came to the conclusion that she was a bit too clean, so I wanted to apply some black paint specifically to any of the areas where I have the white fishnet. So I'm tapping some of it onto, like a ton of it onto the bottom of her like skirt belt thing that she has going on, and I'm basically using sort of the same kind of tappy brush stroke that I used for the eye markings that she has. I added a wash of black paint onto her mechanical leg as well. I decided that the fur that she has on her jacket could also use a gradient, so I'm using some black pastel and I'm tapping that onto the bottom of the fur. Since she's Jack Frost, but I'm kind of like leaning into a little bit of like, I wanted to lean into a little bit of like an Ice Queen vibe. I wanted to make her an ice crown. I'm going back to my trusty sparkly hot glue and I'm making some little like wiggles on a plate basically. I'm just like wiggling it up and it's supposed to mimic icicles. So in 3 seconds, I'm going to show you guys why you shouldn't have your hand in direct line of a sharp object. After freaking out a little bit, I glued my icicles in place. So I'm gluing them to a wire that I curved, and I also have some little loops at the end. These are so that I can pin the crown in place. After I'm done gluing the icicles, there's like little gaps in between each one, so I'm just going over those with my hot glue. To tie the crown into the black markings that she has on her outfit as well as her face, I'm using a bit of black acrylic paint, and I'm doing that same like sort of tappy brush stroke on the top of each one of the icicles. I then tap some light blue metallic watercolor on top of the black. In my giant bag full of Monster High accessories, I found this belt, which I believe is from the Monica doll from the Ballerina Ghouls line, and I didn't like how it was asymmetrical, so I'm going to be cutting the middle part off and using the belt and also the choker. Off camera, I added a couple more belts of the purple vinyl up where her like chest is, and also attaching her top to her shorts and around her arm of her jacket. I decided she needed a snowflake on her shirt, so that's what we're doing. I'm sketching the snowflake in place, trying to be like as exact with it as I can with a micron pen, and then I'm going over the micron pen with some black acrylic paint. I came to realize when I was painting this that it's very difficult to paint on top of this sparkly blue fabric, and it's not like the sharpest of lines. But to be completely honest, that didn't really bother me too much because I feel like this aesthetic sort of lends to that a little bit. Like it doesn't, like things don't need to look like completely perfect, I guess. I went over the black lines with a bit of Pearl Purple from Arteje's fabric paints. I then went over the purple with some white acrylic paint. I found these shoes in my stock box and they were like just absolutely perfect. They have like this whole like see-through kind of crystal thing going on. I believe that they were LEDs. I think that they're the coolest Monster High shoes that I've seen. Moving on to the gun. So this was the bane of my existence for this doll repaint. So I sketched it out and I was like, I'm gonna make a gun. I'm gonna make one. It's gonna look great. No. So I started with an armature that I made out of barbecue sticks and straws. I didn't feel like getting my rotary tool out, so I'm just sitting here struggle busting trying to cut barbecue sticks with an X-Acto blade. Once everything was cut, I'm hot gluing it all in place. I'm wrapping wire around each one of the straw areas because I figured that the epoxy sculpt would have issues clinging to the plastic of the straws. To capture the buttons and then like the little details that I sketched into the gun design, I'm using Worbla and foam. After everything was either set in place or glued in place or whatever, I painted the whole entire gun black. I brought out all the details with a combination of acrylic paint as well as metallic watercolor paint. To create the capsule that she has on top of her gun, I am cutting down a syringe that I'm going to be sealing with these like halfback silver bead things, and then I'm going to be filling those up with blue UV resin. I wrapped a bit of wire around the capsule and I'm hot gluing that in place. I also went over the glue with epoxy glue just because it's like way stronger. And I went over the back where the hose is going to be with epoxy glue so that I can attach the hose. The other side of the hose has a magnet on it as well that I epoxy glued in place. I decided once I was done this gun that I just did not like it. So I think when it comes to like making mechanical things like guns, it's a little bit more difficult than other weapons. So we're gonna scrap this, and I had to think of like how I could make a gun. So I bought some gun molds off of Amazon. I'm stupid. So you see how like it's just one side of a mold, so it's gonna be flat on one side. If you want to make like a 3D gun type of thing, you need 2 molds that are pointing in opposite directions. At least that's what I would assume. And I obviously didn't have that. They do sell some of those on Amazon, and I should have picked up one of those, but I was under a bit of a time crunch and my brain wasn't quite working to the utmost of its ability because I was under a time crunch. So I made this thing, and then like after it came out of the lamp, I was like, what am I gonna do with half a gun? The answer to that is absolutely nothing. I ended up doing nothing with it, and it also cured kind of weird in the middle, which you guys will see. So I had to throw it out. I actually did buy a 1/6 scale gun off of eBay for this project. That was actually quite nice, but it's still not here. It was supposed to be here like last Tuesday, and it's just never coming because the mail is so messed up in America. My last resort for this gun was actually something that I found at my local drugstore. They had G.I. Joes there, and for some reason they had freakishly large guns because they were like Lego-sized G.I. Joe people. And I was like, fantastic. I painted the gun with this Arteje silver blue fabric paint. I don't think I would recommend this. It's just not the most heavy-duty paint for plastics. The G.I. Joe pack actually came with this dagger as well, so I decided to paint that and incorporate it into her outfit. I'm going over certain areas of the gun as well as the dagger with metallic blue watercolor. I also add a bit of light blue acrylic paint to the dagger and gun. I wrap a strip of black fishnet fabric around the handle of the dagger and sew that in place. This is how they look once the paint job's done, and I dig them. I think they look pretty good. I added a bit of gloss to the blade of the dagger. I have these silver little like half back bead things that I'm adding to certain areas of the gun just so that it looks more detailed. I still wanted this gun to have a hose connecting to the back of it that's going to be connecting to her back. So I'm cutting that off of the original gun and I'm gluing it in place. My whole thought process with this gun is like the hose takes like her little like winter powers, you know, and it puts it from like her to the gun, and then the gun shoots like frosty bullets. That's her backstory. I wanted where the hose connects to the gun to have the same leaking quality that her back has, so I'm going all around the hose with my sparkly blue glue. I made a little like dagger holder with my purple vinyl that I'm going to be wrapping around her thigh, and that's actually the last thing. Yes! post-apocalyptic Christmas come through. I actually like, okay, this doll like sort of was out of my comfort zone because like we all know I just like sparkles and like frilly stuff, but I actually really dig her. I think she looks kind of badass. She looks like if Jack Frost went through some shit and was also a woman. I'm gonna urge you guys again to please check out everyone else's videos. They are all linked down below. I think all of the dolls came out just really awesome. I also want to say Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, and I hope your Christmas was safe and fun and you got all the presents in the world, and I would say that you got to see your loved ones, but right now it's a little weird. So anyway, y'all, like this video if you like this video, subscribe, it makes me happy, and I hope you guys are having a beautiful day. Bye!